All right, welcome. Good morning. It's a pleasure to talk to you today, Wolfgang. Welcome to ITB 2022.
Thanks, Willy. Good to be with you.
It's very good to be with you. Now, the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance represents 16 of the leading hospitality companies, over 35,000 hotels worldwide. And the goal really is to achieve a more sustainable and inclusive hospitality sector. But today, you will speak about something quite exciting, and this is about the pathway to net positive hospitality for the planet. So welcome again, Wolfgang, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. And really, it's great to be part of the ITB Responsible Tourism track. As you said, I want to set out a vision today for net positive hospitality for the planet. And I want to do that actually from three different positions. First, I want to do this as proud chairman of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, which is a dynamic organization which represents 30% of the global hospitality industry. And it's an alliance which is working collaboratively to tackle the environmental and social challenges of our time. And secondly, I want to do this as a long-term committed leader in the hospitality business. I'm passionate about the people, the communities, and the environments in which we all operate in. And thirdly, I set out this vision as a concerned father of three kids who really want, I think, our generation to preserve the beautiful planet for future generations. I want to start this presentation with talking about the landmark report which the United Nations published very shortly a few weeks ago, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the world's foremost body of climate researchers. There are some 270 scientists from 70 countries. It's a landmark report which highlights that climate crisis is real and it's existential. I think the extreme weather events, which are all linked to climate change, are hitting us and our ecosystem very hard. Actually, they're hitting us much harder than previously assumed, and the report underlines that nature is decimated at an unprecedented rate in human history. It's bad, and it's playing out right in front of our eyes, playing around the world. And I think the Financial Times rightly called this in a recent headline, Code Red for humanity. In February, the World Economic Forum published its annual global risk report, and these environmental risks dominate the report, both for short and for long term. And it is highlighted that climate action failure is the most severe risk on a global scale. Now, I limit myself to quoting just two examples of the many alarming reports we all get on a regular basis. Yes, they create attention, and yes, we have started to respond. Sustainability has moved up the agenda, things are happening. We think back at COP26 last year, created some momentum, but we are still far off the greenhouse gas reduction targets set in Paris some 6 years ago. And the fact is that we continue to borrow from future generations, and we are rapidly approaching a real tipping point. There was some good news in the UN report at the end, and the scientists confirmed that we can still avoid the very worst, but we need to act. We need to act with vigor. We need to act with a sense of urgency. We all have a responsibility to act. And therefore, it is now that we really need responsible leadership more than ever. And I think history has taught us that it's in moment of crisis that leaders emerge, leaders who have the courage to step up to the plate, leaders who understand that advancing sustainability is no longer just a nice to have, but are really committed to walk from talk to action, and who really firmly embed their commitment to sustainable business practices in the company's values, in the DNA, and in the strategy. Now, I'm encouraged to see more and more responsible leaders emerging. These are the type of leaders who put purpose at the heart of their corporate strategy. And that has many benefits. They understand that purpose is critical for the long-term success, that it's vital to attract and retain talent, that in the absence of purpose, customers vote with their feet, that investors demand it, and rating agencies monitor progress. And I think that's important to say, it translates to the bottom line. It triggers real superior value creation for assets and for operation. Now, we all are familiar with the UN Sustainability Development Goals. It has become a focal point for value-driven businesses. I think it's one of the greatest templates of any business plan ever published. The opportunities are huge, and sustainable investment has already reached some $35 trillion, and millions of jobs are created from it. But I think we need to be honest, it's a huge task and can be quite overwhelming. Now, in the SDG pursuits, the various industries and companies have learned that environmental and social issues are actually far too big to tackle it alone. It takes partnerships, it takes collaboration, and it's no coincidence when you look at the screen on the very bottom on the right that SDG 17, the last one in the lineup, focuses on partnerships. And a successful development agenda requires inclusive partnerships at the global, regional, national, and local level, built upon a shared vision. And I'm a firm believer that the hospitality industry has an immense positive presence in communities and destinations around the world. We are a force for good, but we need to do more. And we know that the global travel and tourism sector contributes about 8% of global greenhouse gas, and hospitality in itself about 1%. So let's face it, the last 2 years were not easy. They were difficult and challenging for our industry. The last couple of months, yes, we have seen some encouraging developments in terms of business recovery, but now we are concerned about the horrible developments in the Ukraine and the unfolding humanitarian crisis. And none of us knows when this senseless war might end, but we can be confident, I believe, that this resilient and great industry of ours will remain a global economic powerhouse. Joys of travel and discovery and human interactions will remain and prevail, and the travel and tourism industry will go back to produce some 10% of global GDP. And I think it's exactly in that backdrop that the travel and tourism industry has a critical role to play and a real contribution to make. And we must plan and drive responsible recovery. We need to change our business behaviors. We need to build a sustainable business model across the entire value chain. And as an industry, we need to come closer together with our peers, with our partners. We can't do it alone. We need to increase the exchange of ideas across the value chain: real estate owners, investors, brands, operators, architects, consultants, suppliers, and advocates, you go on, but we all need to accelerate the pace of change. And that is exactly where organizations like the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance have a strong role to play, providing a central global forum for open dialogue, sharing of best practice, creating synergies, educating, innovating, and most importantly, driving action. So here's our vision for the industry. Every hotel working towards net positive hospitality, whatever their starting point. From those who are just getting started to those who are leading the way in sustainable innovation. And it's time for us to look beyond having zero impact. We must recognize the immense potential we have to make a lasting positive impact on our world. No doubt this is, yes, it's an ambitious goal and we have a long way to go, but for the future of the hospitality industry, we must be committed to achieve that. And a part of this journey, we have to define what net positive actually means for the industry, as well as having a positive impact. I mean, to me, net positive, simply said, is to put more back into the environment than we take out, to be regenerative. Now, this might be appearing as a very ambitious objective, but let's not get entrenched in the art of the possible, but move beyond. I love the quote from Steve Jobs, who told us, embrace insanely ambitious goal when it comes to fighting for a better future. So how can we achieve this? The Sustainable Hospitality Alliance has recognized the need for a coordinated and action-focused strategic plan. And today, we are very proud to launch the Pathway to Net Positive Hospitality. It's a practical 4-stage guidance framework with clear actions and goals, starting with basic environmental actions, advancing to robust actions, accelerating to net zero, and leading to net positive. And the program will support hotels to prioritize and sequence the most meaningful actions, focusing on issues such as emission, water, consumption, waste, and biodiversity. It's a free resource, supporting all parts of the hospitality value chain, including actions for brands, individual properties, as well as asset owners. It is an initiative that has been created for the industry, by the industry. We've collaborated with all our alliance members, engaged with other parts of the hospitality industry and its value chain, and consulted with a whole range of environmental experts. We're also delighted to be partnering with the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, and its members. Together, we are setting the global starting level, and we are defining how to support every hotel to get started on the pathway. So let me close by making an appeal to each and every one of you. We need you. We need you to act, and we need you to do it now. Every hospitality business, regardless of size, type, or category, can improve their environmental impact. And it doesn't matter where you are on the journey. What counts is that you embrace the journey. And it will require strong, value-driven leadership at the top. From chairman and board, CEOs, and executive teams, it takes responsible leadership. And I'm delighted that we have industry CEOs here today to discuss their approaches to sustainability. And these lineup of leaders, they understand the challenges and they also see the opportunity. So I appeal to you, don't shy away from pursuing this bold challenge to achieve net positive. Let's not waste any more time, but rise to the occasion. I have no doubt that embracing the challenge of net positive will bring out the very best in the organizations who adopt it and in the people who drive it. So let's join forces and work towards responsible hospitality for a better world. Thank you.
The positive impact hospitality has on our communities and environments globally is unmistakable. But we know we have to do more. That is why we as an industry have united to launch the Pathway to Net Positive Hospitality.
It's all a matter of shifting 360 degrees your way of acting and talking, which is move away from compensation to contribution. Make sure you contribute to those what it matters the most, which is your employees, your guests, the local community, the local suppliers. Reduce your energy consumption, preserve the oceans.
No one company can shape the future of responsible travel alone. It requires teamwork and a real collective effort across the industry to achieve a common goal.
Unified, we have the strength to help safeguard the environment, giving back more than we take within our local communities and on a global scale. We know we can't protect our planet alone. We need all hotels, owners, investors, suppliers, and our own associates to advance on their sustainability journeys as well.
The Pathway will help create tangible change locally and internationally at scale, supporting every hotel globally, no matter their starting point.
The reality is, the Earth can't wait, and our vibrant industry has the ability and responsibility to act with urgency to bring to life our collective vision for net positive hospitality.
I'm inviting all the hotels around the world to join the movement for a sustainable hotel industry.
We can really make that so needed impact to stop where the world is going, reverse whatever we can still reverse, and really ensure that we make sure that people, the environment, the globe, and everything else is sustained for very many years in the future.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang, for this insights into the Alliance's net positive, the pathway to net positive. I mean, it's a challenging but necessary plan in mounting, facing all the challenges that we're having. So again, thank you very much, Wolfgang Neumann, Chairman, the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, for being with us here today at ITBBerlin 2022. Thank you.
Really, pleasure to be here.
Yes, so we're moving on now, and joining us now are the leaders in the hospitality sectors, and that is represented with Marloes Knippenberg, CEO Kerten. We have Sébastien Bazin, Chairman and CEO of the Accor Group. We have Nakul Anand, Executive Director, ITC Limited, and Dirk Bakker, CEO, Netherlands, Head of Hotels, EMEA, Colliers. Let's welcome our guests.
So welcome all, welcome to Marloes, welcome to Sébastien, welcome to Nakul, and welcome to Dirk. Thank you for being with us on a very busy day, no doubt, for all of you. Now, we just heard from Wolfgang, pathway to net positive needs leadership. You are all leaders. Sustainability is a very multifaceted and complex topic. Sébastien, if I may turn to you already, you are dealing with a number of issues as a CEO of Accor, not to mention the Ukraine crisis at the moment, where you went out and made a bold statement yesterday. But how do you as a CEO keep abreast with all the different issues that involve ESG? And where do you see the needs of a CEO of the future in order to keep leading us towards that pathway to net positive?
Well, thank you. And I guess all my thought, of course, is people in Ukraine. And I need to tell you, just 2 seconds, we have 7 hotels in Ukraine. 4 of them are remaining open. 700 people have been working for Accor in Ukraine. And I'm on video with them every 3 days. And it's a very, very bizarre sentiment to be comfortably seated in Paris on video with my head of hotels on the fire. They are tired, but they are smiling and they are fighting and they have the positive energy. And I'm trying to give them as much energy I could from myself and the team here. But I am so admirative of what those people are going through. And I'm also questioning myself of what we do in Russia and other places. But Accor will never close a hotel when people need us to remain open, both for witnessing with journalists, with nonprofits. So I won't bore you with this, but I just want people to understand. But we are in a very much warmer industry than selling a product, perfume or bag. And in many occasions, people have to understand that remaining open is a must for trying to make sure conflict will last as little as possible. So, and being a caretaker and helping. That being said, ESG is actually not very far from what I just told you. It's a value before being an obligation. Either you believe into it and it's come with your heart, but if it's only done gimmicky with your brain as a must, don't think about it, you're going to be miserably failing. So it starts with the employees of your own company. They want you to be in the forefront of it. It is many multifaceted. So what you can do for inclusion, diversity, handicap, underprivileged, it's very different in nature than what you can do for carbon emission. So it's a mixed bag of different initiatives. In order to be successful, there's only one word: methodology. It's you may have the best ambition ever. If people don't know what they embark into, if they cannot measure the success, if you cannot live by what you're being basically projecting yourself into it. So in a quick answer to your question, I've been saying to my people 4 months ago, we've been engaging on 46% lower carbon emission by 2030. And then I asked my people after they put that public, I said, that's wonderful. But do you know what is the carbon emission of one single hotel? If you don't know that answer, there's no way I'm going to be reducing by 46%. So you start per brand, per hotel, per geography, because the carbon emission of a Pullman in Paris has nothing to do with an Ibis in Sri Lanka. So understand at the hotel level what are the causes for the emission, and then give the keys to your general manager. Sit down with your owners, because there's probably a cost associated with it. Give you the time to do it, but embark and make sure people are so proud of achieving quarter by quarter a reduction, whether it is water consumption or material. So it's granular, it's a methodology, but it comes with a true envy to do it, and don't go away from it, and start only with your employees. Your guests, of course, are asking for it, but the people to embark is your own team. That's my answer to you.
Thank you, Sébastien. And Marloes, if I may ask you, A, do you agree with what you just heard? And B, also, we just heard from Wolfgang also, our sector is very resilient. We are all about people. So how is it that you cannot just project leadership within your own company, but across the entire industry as a whole, so that we as an industry move forward?
I think, do I agree with Sébastien? Yeah, I think if I have to write down what the new CEO of the kind of new world has to do, it's about collaboration. I think more than ever, it's about building an ecosystem of different stakeholders, owners being one of them, governments being another one, team being another one. This empowerment and the locality, it's great to say, right? But unless you put in place a process that allows people to do that, a vision that everybody can identify themselves with, it's hollow words. And I think one of the reasons, for example, we've never really talked about sustainability in the open, because my philosophy was always we implement and then we talk about it. And so we're launching our ESG brand next week, because we have 4 years of content that we can communicate about, and people that are saying today, and to Sébastien's point on Ukraine, I have to say it was one of the first times I actually really didn't know what to do, because we're too small to make a massive impact, but big enough to actually be there. And I have teams sitting in Poland, just across the border, and they're shouting out that we have to do something. And I think it was the first time that you could really see everybody collaborate and pulling together and just saying, okay, if you have access, I'm here to take on responsibility one. And we took on villages. So we're at the moment assisting villages set up to take on refugees. And I think all of these elements come together, which go so far beyond hotel operations in the good old times. And this leadership top down instead of bottom up, I think is totally changing. And, it's just this phrase of determination and never giving up. It sounds wonderful, but really, if you really believe in this is your life. Balance and working and everything. This is it. We can only make this change if we're living it. And I think we've really implemented and we're growing that throughout the entire company. But that means that you have to question every single process. And ESG comes at the beginning of every single project, defines the points in which you're going to execute. And if that's technical services, if that's operations, if that's your legal agreements, if that's your chart of accounts, anything follows from there. And that means, you're questioning everything. And it's uncomfortable a lot of the times.
Yeah, let's pick up on this, Marloes, if that's okay. So collaboration, cooperation, determination, you've said. And that goes well along the way of Sustainable Development Goals 17 on global partnerships for the goals. Maybe I'd like to turn to Dirk with this question here. How do you see from your angle this collaboration and collective action, especially when we look at the hospitality value chain? We're looking at a fair number of different parties, stakeholders you were talking about earlier. We have the owners, we have asset managers, we have operators, we have brands, we have the investors, the developers, etc. So they all need to accelerate that pace of change we've talked about. We have to see those actions on the ground, what we've said, with methodology, as Sébastien just mentioned. So how do we align those actions across this sphere of hospitality, Dirk?
There's an enormous amount of questions and not a simple answer. And it's basically, it starts with a combination of the opening statement that Sébastien gave and also that Marloes added to. It's all about mentality. It's about change. I mean, if I and Sébastien and Marloes as leaders in this industry, if we don't live ESG and we don't drive that change ourselves, it will never happen. Secondly, we're dealing with a young generation of people that are coming into our industry. From 18-year-olds to 25-year-olds, they already have adopted ESG completely in their system. So we need to make sure that we listen to them, that we bridge that gap between established leadership and young people to accelerate the knowledge and the understanding and about ESG and what it means in every aspect. So that's answer number 1 of 5 or 6, I guess you asked me. Number 2 is there are owners of hotels and there are operators. The operators, Sébastien is one of them, and you just heard his passionate opinion on how he lives and how Accor lives ESG. So there's an easy challenge. Sorry, Sébastien, in that sense, because of your leadership, you're driving it down. The more difficult one sits in the ownership of the various hotels in the various countries. There's legislation, there's rules and regulations that are not the same in every country. Thank God we now have a first start that we call taxonomy. Taxonomy is an international overspanning guideline, basically, on how we can deal with ESG. That will simplify it for owners, but also for banks and lenders and investors to do the right thing and to do what's right for their clients, the operators. And I think that is a big step already. And then initiatives that we see coming from new kinds of banks that hold ESG values very high in their esteem. So you're getting more like an impact investment situation that we will certainly help accelerating values across the chain. And I can go on for another half an hour on what needs to be done, but it's a combination of mentality, of top-down leadership, and empowering young people and adopting one set of regulations that are border crossing.
Thank you so much, Dirk. So let's pick up on this a little bit and look on the ground. So I turn to you, Nakul, at ITC. You've actually turned this into actions. Your property, I think all your luxury hotel properties are LEED Platinum certified. You even have one property, I think that's LEED Zero Carbon certified. Is this then the result of collaboration, or do you see actually a difference in the properties you own versus the property you manage?
Thanks, Peter. If one may take leave of modesty, yes, we are the largest hotel chain in the world with the maximum number of properties that are LEED Platinum certified. All our 20 properties that we own are LEED Platinum certified. In fact, the office from where I'm talking to you is perhaps the greenest building in the world. Our corporate office is also LEED Platinum certified. During last year, you mentioned one, we have 3 LEED Zero Carbon certified hotels, and we hope to get another 8 or 9 by the end of this year, by the end of this calendar year. Yes, it's a difficult job to get through to the owners. So far, it's only owned properties. We are working very hard with some of the owners, no different to all of us as humans. They hate to be sold, but they love to buy. So I think what we need to do is, and you know, when I finished my hotel school, a professor once told me that you never sell training, you market learning. Now that's always remained in my mind. So similarly here, you need to market the benefits of going green, of platinum-rated buildings, and so on and so forth to owners, and that's what we're constantly doing. And in many ways, many of the owners are coming back to us and asking us now for help on how to get themselves certified.
Which brings us to the next question, still in real estate. And Dirk, if I may circle back to you on that one. At Colliers, you offer a series of services in regards to commercial real estate and obviously hospitality real estate. Do you see the sector combining that growth and the pipelines that we see at the moment with the net zero requirements? And how do we avoid having too many stranded assets? Because we're developing new things, and as we know, when we develop new things, it's easier to build energy efficient and net carbon zero. But what happens with all the existing properties?
Well, the existing properties obviously at some point need to be upgraded. There's no avoiding that. And obviously for owners, and again, these local regulations, it is usually or quite often it's quite difficult for them to really understand where they need to start. It's obviously they know what they need to do and what they want to do, but what is the cost and what is the impact basically on their labeling and on their new operations. Therefore, for a company like Colliers, we're very well placed to develop these tools because we do valuations, we can learn from other asset classes, and we apply calculation tools where we can advise our customers, look, if you put, let's say, double glazing in, it will have this and that effect on your exit value of your hotel. And it will also have an effect on your financing, should you be refinancing or should you want to finance your hotel. So these two factors are important to see, and the effect of what the increase in construction costs is going to be whilst you start refurbing or repositioning your hotel. So those are three elements where companies like ours, and not just Colliers, but where we should be, and everybody should hold companies like Colliers also accountable, in my view, to be advising and to use that knowledge that we have, because we can see that again from so many asset classes in so many countries where we are working in, and use that and put that to use to owners and operators.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we can circle back now. I mean, this is very good, and I'm picking up a little bit from Dirk, and I circle back to you, Sébastien, because you were talking about the amount of emissions that you're trying to save. And I mean, your company, Accor, has committed to the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action, which really calls for that partial decarbonization by 2030 and then a full decarbonization by 2050. So de facto, you've made sustainability a core component, I guess, in the DNA of Accor. Maybe you can say yes or no to that. But how is that impacting then your plans, like your growth plans in terms of properties, looking forward? And in which way does these commitment towards decarbonization play into that growth?
Well, it plays both ways. We've made that commitment of minus 46% on the network by 2030, and of course, people have been asking me, is this like for like? So with the same 5,300 hotels, since we're opening almost one hotel a day in the next years ahead, between 320 and 370 hotels. So by definition, the more hotel I add to the system, the tougher it's going to be to go to the minus 46, unless I can actually learn from Nakul. Nakul, I need to see you, because you're probably going to teach me that maybe I'm going to be able to open a new hotel with zero carbon emission at the start. So, but I need a lesson from you, and I'm saying that seriously. I think there's a lot of things we should be learning. A lot of things we should be learning from each other on what worked for you and probably going to work for me. So, short answer is, of course, my commitment is not like for like. So I have to be extremely minded of the new hotels to be open. Second answer to your question, I have no doubt in my mind that some of the hotels we had in mind prior to Glasgow are no longer the same one being open. It's very likely that on some resort destination where they have already a fear of not having enough water, where you want to preserve the ocean coral and many other things, that you simply should not be continuing in that hotel because it is the wrong location and it's going to be to the detriment of the local community. The line I've been having, and I don't mind sacrificing some of the pipeline to respect the values of this company, because if I don't do this, then I'm lying to myself. But the line I have for everybody is just a change of mindset. For the last 15 years, all of us have been wrongly thinking from how could we compensate what we do? And we have to go exactly the opposite, from compensation to contribution. How could we therefore contribute positively to what we do as opposed to compensating? If only people accept changing that line and mindset, then you gladly accept that you may be going to be opening 250 hotels and it's maybe good enough, and then you have a better respect and make sure those 250 are contributing much more than the 100 million, the 100 hotel you would not have opened. So it's yes, it has an impact. But Nakul, you said it, and Dirk as well. I just want to underestimate, and I'm just going to say something to you, passing. 4 years ago, I go to Middle East probably once a month. 4 years ago, whether it's in Abu Dhabi or Riyadh or Qatar, they were very far from being good listeners to what we wanted to do in terms of ESG. You go back, and I was there last week, I think they are well ahead of many other continents on having taken that very seriously and probably showing to us that they're going to be leading the way. So it's not an impossible task to really sit down with your owners, because you're going to be gladly surprised. Some of them want it as much as I want it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Marloes, that wanted to pass that on, as Sébastien mentioned, you have plans for sustainability, and then suddenly, there's a water drought and you need to reply to that in your planning. So how do you make sure that, from global goals and from global challenges, you drill that down to local relevance? Because some of the issues that we mentioned globally, then potentially you go down and you go to a destination and it's no longer relevant there. How do you bridge that gap?
Well, listen, when we started and we went on this journey, it was really because I believed that we could change part in the hospitality industry. And we started the development of Kerten Hospitality because I didn't believe in what we were necessarily selling to owners globally. And today, when it comes to ESG, I think I take the exact opposite approach, which is all of the small pieces, all of the pieces that are more localized, I think have over time a greater effect. And so are we the ones that are going to change the world? Probably not. But are we the ones that can really impact? I think, yes, we can. And so we go by the butterfly effect. And, there's some advantages to being a female leader and talking about the emotional sides of the butterfly, right? You touch the small molecules around you and they can have a global effect. So instead of saying, as Kerten Hospitality, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are saying, in project 1, we are doing 1, 2, 3. And every single one of our openings and every single one of our projects has their objectives and has their pieces, and they're going to really feed in to mothership as in such. And so that allows us to be much more flexible. To Dirk's point, there is different legalities in every single place. There is, just locality of supply chain, right? Or just transparency of whatever you're measuring, even when we're talking about reducing utilities, etc. Who today can take an app like we take SDR and say, yesterday, overall, we spent X amount in energy and we saved this much in water, and against the competition, we're doing whatever. But you still have to call the technical guys somewhere, get it, stick it in an Excel sheet, and then measure it overall over the company. And I think there's so much that we can do there that starts local, and then at one stage collate all of that together. So, and yes, not having standards helps, and yes, being a bit smaller helps. But I think this reversed way of doing it, I think we can have a greater impact in a much faster manner.
So, this is great. So it's methodology times mindset, it seems to be, and we have that fairly straightforward on the net zero narrative. But as we just heard from Wolfgang, now we're talking net positive, this pathway to net positive. So I'm not too sure who I want to turn to actually, but I was trying to think about how is the industry aiming towards that restorations and that regeneration, that net positive. Would you have a few examples perhaps to share with us about those net positive impact? I don't know, Nakul, do you want to pick on this one up on net positive perhaps?
Well, it's possible, and I think that I think first of all, I think we've got the framework ready, which is absolutely remarkable of what the Alliance has done and put together sort of a framework as to how we're going to go. If I look at our own side, that if we look at our own hotels in our experiments that we carried out, some of the activities we did, 55% of our power is from renewable sources. This will go up to 90 in the next 4 to 5 years. We recycle 99% of our waste. We've successfully mitigated single usage of single plastic from all our operations in all our own hotels, reduced dependency on water. I think most importantly, and that's the point that I wanted to make right now, is that all ITC and Welcome hotels that are the owned ones have achieved their 2030 targets of reducing their emission targets of COP21, that is 66% reduction from the 2010 base. So we're already there. So I'm saying here is 10, 12, 15, whatever small hotels. I'm not a large chain like some of you are, but it is possible. And I think that what the Alliance has done and what they brought together, everybody together, set together a framework, I think it's very achievable. And I look forward to it.
Sébastien, net positive, is this what you also felt, it's a little bit hard to say, but felt as you are in touch with your team in Ukraine? Is that also a social component to it in being there in your community?
It's, Nakul said it, and I'm assuming most of the hotel that Nakul is referring to are based in India. I can tell you for a fact on the methodology and the speed at which we're going to be implementing all the things that Nakul was referring to will be vastly different depending where you are. In South America, getting away a plastic bottle is very difficult because they don't have access to proper water. So I won't bore you with all of this, but so for me, it's kind of actually I need to adapt and I need to also accept that it's going to be of a different manner. But my answer to you on net positive impact, the one thing I think we at Accor should be continuing doing, because it is the values company for the last 50 years, and I am very proud of it, and I declare it as a miracle, is what is it that we do to take people away from poverty? People don't realize, but when you have 365 hotels that you open, hire 50,000 new people only for 1 year, to which I add 30,000, unfortunately 10% turnover of my 300,000, then I need to hire. So that makes 80,000. People don't understand, and I need to be better at it. It's more than half of all these 80,000 people we hire never had any prior job, don't have any education. And when you give them a hand, when they start working for you, which is why some of them leave after 4 years, because they have a better self-esteem, they are a stronger person, and I have to accept it. So for me, net positive means what do you do for the local community in finally giving independent resources for the family? And when you have one worker at Accor, it probably supports 4 other people as a family. So this is what I'm doing. I hope we're doing at best. And of course, I'll let my people work on energy and other things. But let's the social elevator part is we should be, all of us, very proud of what our industry, tourism at large, contribute to so many underprivileged population.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And that's such an important component, the aspect and the amount of jobs we create. And taking that a little bit further back to the environment, and Dirk and Nakul, I'm going to sort of throw this question at both of you. In requirements for new buildings, should it be included that we have some component of the natural environment included in new buildings? It contributes, as we know, to insulation or to cooling of buildings. It also contributes to well-being of our staff and our guests. Yeah. So is that something that we should now, going forward in every building, have a requirement to have a component, a green component involved, as into natural environment?
Shall I go first?
Please.
Thanks, Nakul. First, I'd like to add something to what Sébastien said. The enormous amount of people that work for Accor, you can quadruple that if you take Hilton and Marriott and all the other big ones into account as well. But at the same time, the amount of guests and unique guests that stay in your hotels, you have a way, and that's the whole hotel industry has a way of confronting consumers. And at the same time, consumers will demand from you also certain steps to educate them in a very. The hotel industry, in other words, has an enormous potential of educating the world, because people that stay in your hotels are confronted with your actions and with your educated staff. Building that bridge to the green environment, going back to the question. Yes, I would love to see either a circular, because you can take green as the environment or environmental circular reuse of water. You can bring that into your hotel. You can bring green in your hotel, But you can also, just like in Portugal, where it's even a regulation, where if you want to build a new hotel, you have to use materials that have been used before. So it's completely circular. So these kind of measures, they should be, in my view, they should be compulsory. Will that work in every country? Very likely not, because every country, indeed, as Sébastien also said, is different, has different requirements. There's no running water everywhere, so sometimes you need to use bottled water, so it is going to be difficult to do that. But using natural resources more intelligently and make some of that, or partially, compulsory would be a big aid to change the world.
I think that most certification programs, be it the LEED certification or whatever, specify that a certain percentage of the material used in the building have to be got from a defined radius, be it a 50, 100, 150, etc., that reduces your footprint. I fully endorse that view, and I believe it must happen. I also believe that bringing in local elements into a building enhance the consumer experience in addition to bringing the footprint down, lowering your carbon footprint. So I think from both point of view, it's an excellent thing and must be made mandatory.
Mm.
We have a lot of questions from the audience, and I know we don't have the time, but I'm going to try and pick the ones that have gained the most traction here as well. One on employee turnover, and Sébastien, you mentioned this, that they leave after 4 years because they often have a better job, they have more self-confidence. So, but how can we, also with seasonal staff, because a lot of hotels are then closed for parts of the year, how do we ensure the consistency in engaging the staff on your sustainability initiatives and really using them to drive that forward?
Don't have any fear about it. Whether it's somebody who actually comes in after 6 months in a job, or somebody remaining for 4 years, the entire world is looking for better planet protection, a lesser use of energy. So there's no difference whatsoever on the length of stay of an employee, and there's not even a difference between somebody working for the hotel industry or somebody working for the automotive industry. Thank God, it is a common sharing now that we must do something.
But I think on that point, right, staff turnover, we're still talking about it like the good old times. You can learn from YouTube a lot, right? So I think this whole idea that they're going to stay with somebody for 5 years, 6 years, there's companies coming up at the moment that almost apply the Uber model to any other staff. You know, if I put cutlery on the table for Sébastien, for Chris, for Anand, for whomever, right, the cutlery will still be on the table at the same space. The kind of people that you need are the one that have probably a higher EQ, that really kind of feel what you want as a company, who believe in the same philosophies, you know, who carry that. And even if they carry that for 6 months, you can then actually put more people into the world. And I think that's also where at one stage, I think we should find a balance between celebrating and punishing, because as much as we've done nothing with the amount of focus that ESG is getting at the moment, you know, if it's about bringing in more team members or all of the projects that Anand is doing, the collaboration also goes to collaboratively celebrating or referring to each other instead of just, you know, celebrating ourselves or punishing ourselves. Or, you know, I think ESG shouldn't become the next dentist. And I think if we become a bit better in that and really this sharing economy, take that to a different level, and do much more with the changes that the next generations are expecting.
All right,
it goes back to culture.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I want to make the bridge, because Sébastien started to say at the start of this session, mentioned the customers and the guests. And of course, the employees are very important in the sustainability narrative and the actions that you're taking at the property and so on in driving sustainability. But what is the role of the guests ultimately in your sustainability plans? Does anyone want to share? Sébastien, you've said that the guests are there. Of course, they're very important. Do they have an active role to play in your sustainability endeavors?
Yeah, you won't fool them. It's going to be a criteria of choice, my dear. They're going to be looking on your website. What are you doing? What's your emission? What's your water energy? Where's the energy coming from? Don't you worry. If you don't pay attention, they already are. And they have with their iPhone the entire ability to actually take photos of a single-use plastic in the hotel, and I'm dead. So I just, it's very important. It is a criteria of choice, but I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it first for the local community, embark my employees, and then the employees will come because I've done step 1 and step 2.
And I can see Marloes and Nakul shaking heads. Marloes, do you want to say something about that as well, about the role of your customers? And
yes, we include them in the community activities. So by including guests in what we're doing with the teams in the local communities, you create an engagement. And with that engagement, people come with interesting ideas, interesting efforts, and funnily enough, or great enough, they continue to support some of the initiatives even after they leave. And it comes down to curation and connection. And yes, it's labor intensive and it's a bit different, but it really gives them a responsibility and something that they can actually physically do and believe in.
Nakul?
I agree with Sébastien that you're not doing it for the guests, we're doing it because we feel for a cause, we feel for the community, etc. But then there are two types of guests who come in. One who believe in ESG, etc. For them, it is important that they feel it, they touch it, and they actually realize what is being done and what are the efforts being done by this industry. For those who don't believe it, here is an opportunity for the industry to send them out as ambassadors. Tell them that this industry is doing so much. Can they go out and can they become ambassadors? Just as we want all our associates to be ambassadors.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing session. We've learned a lot. We're looking forward to finding out more from the net positive, the pathway to net positive, of course. We thank you so much for taking the time for the ITBBerlin 2022. Thank you, Marloes, Sébastien as well, Nakul, and Dirk for your time this morning. And we wish you the best of success, of course, with your endeavors on sustainability. We'll keep watching for sure. Thank you so much for joining the ITB this morning.
Thank you all. Good to see you. Bye.
Bye.